A migrant and his dog rescued from the channel after spending 3 days adrift in a dinghy after its motor failed. Now, in some ways, you're going to take your hat off to this guy, Lucy, because very good morning to you. He's decided, forget it, don't go to the people smugglers, don't give them 4,000 quid, don't even go to the Albanian ones who are offering a summer sail for 2,000 quid. Just find your own dinghy and set sail on your own.
Yeah, good morning, Mike.
Morning.
Very good to be here again. Yeah, I think, it's just getting ludicrous at the moment. People are taking all sorts of measures to get to our lovely country, and they don't want to spend £1,500 crossing a rubber dinghy. You can totally understand that. And I think what's really concerning at the moment is that along with the warmer weather, the sunny, summers upon us now, we're going to see an increase in illegal migrant crossings.
Yeah.
So last week on the 13th of June, in one single day, there were 919 illegal migrants that arrived in a single day.
Yeah, it is incredible, isn't it? I mean, the numbers just keep going up. The weather, as long as it continues to be as clement as it is going to mean that hundreds more are going to come in the coming week. And it's only 2 weeks really to go, slightly over that, I think, before we get to the year anniversary of the Labour government being in. And it looks as though they're going to come in with about 43, maybe 45,000 illegal migrants having come in the year that they've been in charge.
Exactly. And I think, just having listened to James Cleverly just now, where he spoke about Lord Hermer, I think Lord Hermer is catastrophic to our country in multiple ways. So, Lord Hermer himself compared those wanting to leave the ECHR to Nazis. I mean, this is just ludicrous. So he's blocking our ability to leave the ECHR. He's criticising those, but this narrative of calling us Nazis or racists, as we've known, it just isn't going to work anymore. We've been proven right with regards to the grooming gangs. We knew all along that these were Pakistani men committing the rapes, and this has been called out for decades now, and we were all labelled, far right conspiracy theorists or far right lunatics.
Yeah.
And now even Jess Phillips herself has had to admit, and also Keir Starmer and their whole cabinet of Ponzi's have had to admit that, yes, actually, this is the data and they were correct. So I think it's just a matter of time where others like Lord Hermer will also have to admit, actually, yes, they were right. We need to leave the ECHR. We need to end this problem. And no, they're not Nazis. They just care about their country, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. And, once again, we have a litany of cases this week of people who cannot be deported. I think we've had one every day. I actually call it Migrant of the Day. Today's Migrant of the Day is Olsi Behiluli, who came to the United Kingdom when he was 9 years old. He's an Albanian heroin dealer who once posed with £250,000 in cash. Apparently, he's been allowed to remain in this country because he's not considered to be an important enough kingpin of the heroin selling drug gang. He's been sentenced to 11 years behind bars over what's been described as a senior role in drug dealing after he was caught with 8 kilos of high purity heroin in 2015. But now he's going to be allowed to stay here because, we don't want to send him back because he's quite nice, really.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, two things here. So one is that every single person in the UK prison, it costs the government, well, when I say government, it costs us, the taxpayers, £40,000 per year per prisoner.
Yeah.
And secondly, the UK government, i.e. us, the taxpayers, we are actually funding a brand new state-of-the-art prison in Tirana in Albania, which the purpose of that is that if there are better prisons in Albania, the Albanian government might be more likely to accept Albanian prisoners, Albanian criminals from the UK. So why are we sending money to Albania for their prison, yet we are keeping the Albanian criminals here? None of this makes sense.
No.
And then the other story, which was interesting, this was from yesterday, is that there was a Rochdale grooming gang, of course, Pakistani men. Let's just put that out there. As we're not going to beat around the bush. These Pakistani men, or should I say animals, ripped up their passports just so that they couldn't be deported back to Pakistan. And the UK cannot apparently make them stateless. It cannot deport them because they would be stateless without a passport. But this is absolutely ludicrous. We know they are Pakistani, so they should go back to Pakistan. And what we now need to start doing is we need to be doing checks such as dental checks for age, because we've had, 30-year-olds pretending to be 15-year-olds just to get access here. We need to start doing other sorts of scientific testing to confirm the actual, the actual country of origin of these people. It's really not that hard. Whether it's a DNA test or other sorts of swabbing, you can easily tell the country, the home country of an individual, so they should be sent back to their country of origin. This is not our problem, and to be quite frank, I would prefer to see these Pakistani rapists stateless. Why don't we just send them away somewhere, and if they choose to rip up their passports, then that's their issue, quite frankly. That's not our problem.
Exactly right. I mean, it's not our problem, as you say, if they've decided that they don't wish to be Pakistani citizens for the obvious reason that they don't want to be sent back there. That's where they're from. There is a rule, I think, in British citizenship that you can't actually give up your citizenship. You cannot deny that you're a British citizen. Doesn't matter what you do. If you go to America and you say, I've decided to become an American citizen, the British government doesn't recognise that. And maybe the Pakistani government doesn't recognise it either. We should just send it back and leave it to them to worry about it.
Yeah, precisely. And one other thing I'm very concerned about is the number of British citizenship that we're granting among these countries. So last year alone, there were 22,153 Pakistanis that were granted British citizenship. And similarly for India, there were 24,800 Indians that were granted British citizenship. Like, why on earth are we doing this? They literally have their own countries, both India and Pakistan. They're not exactly war-torn countries. They are, and in fact, India is a flourishing economy.
Of course it is. I mean, I was reading a piece yesterday from, funnily enough, a very long piece actually that was posted on X from a magazine called India Today, and it was all about how bizarrely Mirpur, that place which is actually technically in sort of Pakistani Kashmir, which is where they want to build a new airport. All those MPs from the Midlands who have been rallying around and trying to get money to build a new airport in Mirpur. This is where all the rape gang suspects come from. They all come from a very, very small part of Pakistan, which happens to be incredibly fundamentalist Islamic, incredibly misogynistic, and incredibly backward. And that's where they're all coming from. This is not rocket science. You don't need to be, a serious genealogist to work this stuff out.
No, exactly. Well, I think the other issue as to why we do have a high number of, these sort of Pakistani MPs, for example, is because there is a large sectarian Muslim voting bloc.
Yeah.
But if you look at the statistics in terms of which groups are actually in employment, I believe, the overwhelming majority, way above 50%, maybe closer to 70% of Pakistani women in the UK have never, ever had a job in their entire lives.
Yeah.
And the majority of Pakistani men in this country have never had a job either. So if I were to run a policy, I would say, this is what has to happen. Those in this country that do not pay income tax and are unemployed and are not of our British heritage should not have the right to vote. And I think that's quite frankly one way in which we tackle this issue. Why should you get the right to vote if you're not contributing taxpayers' money? Because the government budget all comes from taxpayers. So you should not have the right to dictate how it's spent if you're not contributing to that pot.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, Lucy. I think I'd take it a step further and say that anybody who's convicted of a criminal offence shouldn't have the right to vote either. Or they should have some kind of, cooling off period where you can't vote for 10 years or something, because that would make an awful lot of sense. Great to talk to you, Lucy White. Thank you very much indeed. Public policy specialist there.